When I was a kid, I used to go to my best friend's house for sleepovers all the time. I would fill my backpack up on Friday morning and ride the bus home with him to stay the weekend. I didn't have a bad life, it was great, but we didn't have a lot of money at my house and we lived in a bad area. My friend had a nice house and it was just different from mine. It felt like an escape from my own life, even though my life wasn't horrible and I wasn't trying to escape it. He lived on a country road and had neighbors not terribly far, but not super close either. He had a large property that was long and went far back. He had about 3 sheds that looked like little log buildings or cabins that were very homemade and creepy looking at night, and of course surrounded by woods in the back. When everybody went to sleep at his house, everything was off. No TV and no lights. It was pitch black and dead silent, except for his mom's box fan, so when we wandered around the house at night, it got creepy understandably. One night we were up late playing on his PS2, and once we turned it off for the night, we couldn't sleep. So we went roaming around the house to see what we could do. His kitchen was lined with windows behind the counter that faced the backwoods, the sheds, and they had a large glass screen door as well. So we went to get some pop, which we weren't supposed to have late at night, and when my friend opened the fridge, I was sure that I saw a light in the shed closest to the house. The shed was still kind of far, but right out from where the woods got a little thicker, so you could see it clearly. Once I noticed it, I shut the fridge door almost on my friend's hands, and when he got mad, I told him why, but there was no light out there anymore. I talked him into waiting at the glass door with me to show him that I knew I saw something. About 10 minutes later, a light went on, more like a flashlight with the swaying. You could see it bouncing around and reflecting off the 2 little windows in that shed. It freaked us out, and we ran to his room and talked about all the possibilities, and eventually we fell asleep. The next weekend, like usual, the same circumstances happened, and I stayed at his house again. This time, we wanted to see if we could see the light in the shed again. So after his parents went to sleep, we waited a while and made our way to the windows. When we got there, we didn't see anything. We went and played some games in his room, and then went back down to the kitchen probably at around 2 a.m. When we went out, we still didn't see anything. For some reason, we kind of talked each other into going outside. I honestly can't remember what for, but I imagine it had something to do with the shed or whatever. We went out the sliding door onto his porch, which was very high off the ground. We were trying to be very quiet, even though his parents' room was on the other side of the house. We got to the porch, but I was too scared to go off it, and I wanted to go back inside. But once I was about to tell him that I wanted to go back in, we heard and saw the door to the shed open. Coming out was some skinny, old, disheveled-looking person, probably a homeless man, but to us kids, he might as well have been the devil. We didn't move at all. I guess it was out of fear, but the guy started walking towards our direction a little. I doubt he even knew we were there, but something snapped me out of it, and I just remember screaming and running to the door with my friend. When we closed the sliding door, we looked back and saw the man running after us. We didn't even lock the sliding door, we just booked it for his parents' room. We woke them up and they got up, looked around the house, and saw that the sliding glass door was open, but they reassured us that it was probably an animal that got in, and they would look tomorrow. My friend and I barricaded ourselves in his room for the rest of the night. When we finally woke up around noon, his dad was outside cleaning around the shed. He found a pocket knife and a bunch of wood that was carved into things. His dad brushed it off as already being there, probably because of all the old random junk around. It was brushed off as our imagination, probably due to the fact that we always played like that. Now grown up, years later, my friend's dad told us the story of that night, but at the time he didn't want to scare us any further. But after we went to bed that night, he checked the basement and found the man down there and had to kick him out of the house. It was a homeless old man that wanted to steal food and other belongings to sell. My friend's dad said that the old man left peacefully and didn't get aggressive or violent at all, which was good. But I'm glad that he sent us kids up to bed that night after seeing the sliding door open. Because as a kid, I would have been scared out of my mind seeing that man in my friend's house. There was this kid who was briefly at our school for a few months in high school. I will call him Tommy for the story. I come from a town where the people you went to school with together in kindergarten were the same kids you graduated high school with. Tommy moved to our school about halfway through our freshman year of high school. When new kids came to our school, everybody flocked to them. The first time he and I had a class together, I remember the teacher asking him if he had his books yet. He responded with, "My wife never confirmed my school schedule with the front office." I remember everybody thought it was funny. You're 14 years old and you have a wife. He was clearly trying to be funny and get a laugh from the class and the teacher. My friends and I were skating after school one day and we saw Tommy. I remember talking with my friends about the joke he said in class, and we all became oddly infatuated with this kid. It took some time, but after about a week of letting him hang out with us, he became one of the boys. One of my buddies asked if we could go to sleep at his house on Friday night, since we would do sleepovers often with each other on the weekends. He looked shocked when we asked, but the next day at school, he did say it was okay after asking his parents. My buddies and I rode our bikes to where he lived, with clothes for the night and our skateboards strapped to our bags. We met his family, who at face value seemed completely fine. Then things got a little weird. First, his dad had a huge weapons collection. At the time, I thought it was awesome. He even took us out into a field by a canal to shoot some of his assault rifles. Next, we met Tommy's wife. Turns out he wasn't trying to be funny in class, and she was real. She was also 26, and the whole wife situation with the 14-year-old boy was definitely strange to say the least, but we didn't intrude or ask a ton of questions. They would like to hold hands. At the time, we thought this was awesome. It was like dating a senior when you're a freshman. Things kind of got to a new level of weird though when Tommy's dad had his arm around Tommy's mom, and his arm was around another girl that couldn't have been terribly older than we were at the time. Apparently, they were both his wives. We then spent about 2 hours praying with the family in the living room. I was raised Catholic, but couldn't determine which religion they were practicing. Once we finished with that, we went outside to start skateboarding. After a few minutes, his dad came outside and ordered us to get into the house. Tommy's mother then had us stand in a line outside of the bathroom to take a bath. I don't know why we agreed to the bath, but we took a bath one at a time, and I remember we were not allowed to drain the water from the tub. I was the last one to bathe, unfortunately. Also, all the mirrors in the house were covered with bed sheets. I don't know the significance of this, but to me it makes more sense not to have mirrors at that point. We were told to go to bed even though the sun wasn't even down yet. Tommy went to bed with his wife. The three of us that remained just laid there in one single queen-size bed and talked about how much fun we weren't having. The final straw for the night was when we heard Tommy's parents in the other room. It was almost 11 p.m. and we decided to just get on our bikes and leave. It was dark out and we had to ride through some bad neighborhoods, but we made it safely to a buddy's house. Tommy was pulled out of school about a week later and we never saw him again. I don't know what that family was into. Maybe it wasn't creepy at all and I just didn't understand. The only thing I know is we felt very uncomfortable. Out of curiosity, years later, I went to find Tommy on Facebook, and I can confirm that him, his mother, father, and one of his sisters had all died. There were no public records of what happened to them or if they died at the same time. I never felt in danger at his house during that sleepover, but it was a disturbing moment in my life when I think back to it. This happened to me as a 12-year-old girl when I had a sleepover at my cousin's house. We had just got done with my cousin Anya's birthday party, and she asked me and my sister if we could sleep over. My parents agreed since it was Anya's birthday and said that we could. Excited, we packed our stuff and got dressed for the fun we were going to have. But little did we know, our fun was only going to last a couple of hours. We sat on the couch eating the rest of Anya's birthday cake while we watched TV. Her parents were going to their grandma's to get Anya's present that they didn't have a chance to give her. At the time, it was about 8 p.m., and it started to get dark out. We were watching a cartoon when we heard a knock at the door. We looked at each other to see who would get up and check. My sister finally got up and looked out the window. She told us that there was somebody on the porch. Since it was dark out, and the dark can sometimes make you see things, we thought that there was really nobody there, but we still had suspicions. Me being stupid and thinking that it was some homeless guy trying to get in, I told the person that the door was locked. Anya's parents told us that when they got back, they would yell our names so we knew it was them. But whoever was there didn't say our names, so we were kind of freaked out. My sister looked out, but once more saw no one. Anya ended up unlocking the door even as I yelled at her not to. She peeked her head out but saw no one. She closed the door and locked it again. A couple seconds later, we heard somebody trying to open the back door, but that was locked as well. We started to get even more scared. I grabbed my phone and went to dial Anya's mom's number. I remembered that I didn't have any minutes on my phone, so I couldn't call. We really didn't need to turn the TV off since the stranger already knew we were there, but we did in fact turn all the lights off. We sat on the couch scared and defenseless as we waited for something to happen. We didn't hear anything, so we thought he or she had left. We began watching TV again, but we kept our guard up. As the show ended, we heard one of the windows in the parents' bedroom being messed with. Soon enough, we heard a sliding noise, which meant it had been opened. We started freaking out as our hearts raced with fear and anticipation. Anya, trying to be the fearless one, grabbed a broom and a kitchen knife and started down the hallway. I grabbed her and pulled her back a little as the door slowly opened. We all stepped behind the couch to get as far away from the intruder as we could. I told them that we could run and book it to the neighbors, but they lived about a mile away. The intruder would easily be able to run after us. We saw as the door opened fully, and out stepped a man in his late 40s or 30s from how old he seemed. I don't know how tall he was, but it looked like he was about 6'4". He had a crazy grin on his face, and he had a poorly shaven beard with short curly hair. He slowly made his way towards us while explaining everything. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want some food and maybe a little bit of your belongings. Just let me do so and nothing will happen to your pretty faces." He said this in a raspy voice. The last part made me cringe as the creep opened the fridge and started placing things in his satchel. Anya, once again trying to be brave, told the man to stop and leave before we called the cops. The man chuckled at her remark and looked down at my phone sitting innocently on the couch. He grabbed it and threw it against the wall with force. I nudged my sister's arm and whispered for her to run to the door while he dug through Anya's belongings. She made her way to the door, unlocking it as quietly as she could, and then opened it. The door, of course, wasn't going to be silent, and it happened to make a loud squeak. The man shot his head to look at the door, and his eyes widened. He tried to run to my sister, but dropped all his stuff on the ground and tripped. My sister had already made her way out towards the gate. I began to run towards the door as well, but the man had managed to grab Anya and pull her back. Her desperate pleas for help made me stop and stare at him as he held her. I didn't know what to do but stare and think of all the things the man could do to me if I tried to stop him. Anya began to thrash around and accidentally ended up elbowing him in his junk. He didn't let go at first, but Anya did it again and he did let go. She ran out the door and so did I. My sister had already opened the gate and we saw her standing there waiting. I asked her why she didn't go to the neighbors and she said she was too scared to go alone. I sighed and we made our way to the neighbor's house. We knocked on their door as hard as we could before a sleepy wife opened it. We ran inside without explaining anything. She got mad at us and started yelling at us, but we told her what happened and she woke up her husband to call the police while she called Anya's parents. The police arrived soon after, but they informed us that the man was gone along with some of the food and stuff in Anya's house. About a month later, the man was soon caught trying to sneak into somebody else's house and he was sent to jail for 5 years. I thankfully got a new phone at the time but lost everything and I had to restart everything I had on my old phone. In 2015, I had a best friend who I will call Jersey. When I first began staying at her house for sleepovers, I was told by her and her older sister that their room had some weird things happening for a while. They each had a single bed parallel to each other which was separated by a lamp. The lamp had a large silver base, and from the top were long, thin, and bendy plastic branches that came out with LED lights from the top. Each branch could be moved and positioned how you wanted it to. They told me one night that the branches would sometimes bend and shake on their own and the lights would flicker too. There was also a built-in cupboard in the wall and I was told that it would open and close throughout the night depending on how they left it in. The door to the cupboard was extremely stiff and essentially made a lot of noise when you tried to open or close it, as you would have to push it hard to have it fully shut or open. I had stayed many nights at their house, almost every single weekend, and had witnessed the things occurring multiple times. I had seen the branches of the lamp moving, shaking, and flickering for no reason at all. It wasn't continuous, so it was very odd. I had also witnessed hearing and seeing the cupboard door randomly open on its own, while making loud noises in the process and slam shut on its own. I had seen this happen even when no windows were open. All these events scared me, but it was one particular sleepover that really freaked me out. It was winter, and me, Jersey, her older sister, and her friend had all decided to have a sleepover. We lit 3 tea light candles and put them on top of the TV, and then spent most of the night just talking, joking, and listening to music. Somehow we ended up speaking about the weird things that had been happening in the room, and we were just messing around and coming up with weird theories. As a joke I said while laughing, I said, "If someone is here, please blow out the middle candle." A few seconds passed and then the middle candle went out. The 2 candles on either side didn't even flicker or move. We all screamed, and for some reason we all jumped onto the same bed piling on top of each other. We were all huddled together, arms covering our ears, and we were kind of laughing and crying for a few minutes. No one had the courage to sit up and open their eyes. Eventually, we counted to 3 and all sat up. We checked the window and it was closed as it was winter, so it couldn't have been the wind. We were so freaked out and spoke about it for a while. Eventually, we went to sleep, but it took a very long time. A while after that, my friendship with Jersey ended, so I haven't stayed there since. I still have no logical explanation for this, and I don't know what happened. This happened years ago. I'm 21 now, but I was probably around 10 when it happened. It was a Friday night, and I had my friend Emily over. We were sleeping in the living room because that's where the TV was, and we'd been watching movies until late. My parents were asleep in their room down the hall. We had our sleeping bags laid out on the carpet, empty popcorn bowls on the coffee table, and the glow from the streetlights was coming in through the window. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up. I don't recall why, maybe a noise or just that strange feeling when you know something's off. I rolled over to face the window, and that's when I saw him. There was a man standing outside. He was close, right up against the glass, just watching. The streetlight behind him made his outline clear. I could tell that he was large, and I could see the shape of his shoulders, but that's all I could make out because he was backlit by the streetlight. At first, I thought maybe it was a trick of light or a shadow, but then he moved slightly, and I knew he was real. He was standing there, staring at us. I froze for a second, trying to understand what I was seeing. Then I screamed loudly. I ran down the hallway, yelling at my parents. My dad came running out, half asleep, asking what was wrong. When I told him, he grabbed the phone and went over to the front door, but by the time he opened it, the man was already gone. My dad called the cops, and the police came not long after. They looked around the yard, shined their flashlights near the window, and found footprints in the mud by the flower bed. One of them asked my dad if he knew anyone who might want to scare him or our family. My dad just shook his head. They said they'd patrolled the area for a while and told us to keep the doors locked. A few days later, my dad got a call from a blocked number. He answered it, and whoever was on the other end just breathed into the phone. It happened again a few times within the next several days, but this time the man talked and would curse at my dad over the phone. Eventually, my dad recognized the voice. It was a man he had fired a few months earlier. He let him go for being inappropriate at work, something about comments he'd made to another employee. My dad called the police again, and they told him to keep records of the call. The man kept doing it for a while, always from a blocked number. Finally, my dad was able to get a restraining order because in one of the man's angry phone calls, he let it slip that he had been the one coming to our house at night. He had been staring through our windows at night, waiting for my dad to mess up and leave a door unlocked. Nothing else ever happened after we got the restraining order, but it stuck with me. Even now, I can still picture that dark shape outside the window. I never sleep with curtains open anymore. If I see a light through a crack in the blinds, I can't help but imagine somebody standing there, looking in. It's been over 10 years, but I still check every window in my room before bed.